Hello YouTube! Now, it's a new month, and you know what that means, a new issue of Endgame. I can't talk very much about the cover because this is the Lego variant cover. I'm not entirely sure how I ended up with that. But yes, so many of you who watched my previous review know that I wasn't much of a fan of the first part of Endgame, but part 2 is awesome. I am serious. I'm going to have to sort of try to avoid spoilering it for you because I really suggest that you buy Endgame part 2, even though I didn't like part 1. I mean, we see some more of the whole hallucinations thing from the Cassandra strain of the fear toxin. I won't talk more about that. That was just a brief point in part 1 that seemed pointless. I do have some complaints. We still haven't seen Cyborg or Green Lantern, even though they were in the previous issue's cover. But that's a bit minor. Also, there's this whole thing about how the Joker used to consider Batman his friend in some way. Of artwork in this. I know it's by Greg Capullo, and last time I really did have some serious complaints about some areas of his artwork. But he's completely forgot. Well, he seems to have completely solved his nose problem. Perhaps someone else told him about that. But some of this stuff is so dark and so wonderfully juicy, creepy. It's just fantastic. And there's just a little more. This is interesting, really, this story, because every other time we see the Joker in a comic, to my knowledge, Batman's always somehow intellectually one step ahead of him. He's always one step ahead of his plans. This time, we find that Joker isn't one step ahead of Batman. He's 2 years ahead of him, because for the past couple of years, he's been masquerading as this person who's been a recurring character in the comics before. And when all this time that this character's been here, it's been the Joker in disguise. And nobody had the faintest idea. I certainly hadn't the foggiest. So, yes. And now all of a sudden, we get the fact this is the Joker. And I love the way they haven't explained how he's got his new mug. I'm assuming that's what the whole stories that are going on in the second story arc, which started in one with what was it? With the Pale Man. Yeah, the Pale Man story arc continues in this with Saved. Unfortunately, even though they're both written by James Tynion IV, they didn't get Kelly Jones, to do the artwork for Saved, even though it's part of the same story arc. And I could complain about that because his artwork was superb previous time, but this guy, they have got Graham Nolan, and the colorist they used, Gregory Wright. It's very retro in this section, very 60s, and it's utterly fantastic. And it really goes with the fact that this is both a sort of 50s to 60s era slasher story, and it's a sci-fi sort of retro feel to it. But this is all what's going on in her head. It's marvellous, but it's also setting up the potential for the Joker to have actually, for quite some time, been going back and interfering, messing with these people's heads, potentially for a long time to get them here, as well, instead of just as Dr. whatever her name is, I cannot remember her name, the woman that they kidnapped, as she just says, he's playing into their fantasies. It's possible that he's been manipulating their fantasies for the sole purpose of having a twisted joke with it. I will admit, though, there is one sort of major-ish weak point with the story. We find out from what the Joker's saying, and we see it in Saved, that his main plan really is he's just going to chuck more Joker toxin on Gotham, basically. Something he's done a million times before. Yeah, you can see that here. He's starting it in Saved. And it just it reads like an episode of a children's cartoon when he says that that is the plan. Yeah. It's I'm not a fan of that. I thought they'd do something much more original when they've got the Joker that much more ahead, and when they've got him to do all of this stuff with the Justice League. But I do like the fact that the Joker now, because he considers himself Batsy's friend before, and now considers him his enemy, he's telling Batman he's going to kill him. Ah, goodness sake, I lost my spoiler freeness, didn't I? I probably told you a lot of spoilers. But there's a lot that I haven't told you. There's a lot of superb art in here, a lot of wonderful storytelling. It's very dark, very, very dark. And it sort of reads a bit like a film. They do still seem to have forgotten the scene where he was stabbed in the previous book, though. I will say that. His stab mark's completely not on his batsuit. It's gone. But that's okay. Batman's fine with that because he's Batman. So yeah. And the way he stops Superman is very, very clever. I won't reveal that. It's all very, very clever. There's some good dialogue with Alfred. Oh my goodness! Just read this. Just buy this comic and read it. I know I hated part 1 of this story arc. You can watch my review to see why. But part 2 is a vast improvement. I cannot recommend it highly enough. I'm eagerly awaiting part 3 and, and onwards. So, next time I will either be reviewing part 3 or the Batman Annual, which is also part of Endgame, depending on which arrives first. So, yeah, that is Batman Endgame Part 2. Thanks, YouTube.